What is going on, and welcome back to the channel here. This is my 2024 GR Corolla from Toyota. This has been the vehicle that I have been racing all season long in the Lone Star Rallycross, as well as the Houston SCCA Rallycross. I am champion in both of those, but I want to start updating this car. We haven't done really anything to it. If you guys have been watching over on JW Racing, this car is completely stock. It is the exact same way it was when I bought it from the dealership. But if we want to start advancing our driving skills, we got to start advancing the car, and that's going to start with putting it in the modified class. The easiest way for us to do that is start lifting it and putting new wheels and tires on it. But for today, we're going to be putting some new springs on this. I picked up the new Eibach Pro-Lift Kit. This here, I believe, does an inch in the rear and a 1.2 in the front. So we are going to go ahead and get this on here. And by we, I mean myself and Ethan. Okay, so Ethan's not out here yet, but I promise he is coming, and we are going to do this vehicle together. Maybe. No, I didn't say drop it.
Drop it as fast as I can?
No. To be able to access the top of the struts, we're going to have to pull back the cowl a little bit by removing this push rivet. That'll give us access to these 14mm nuts that we have here at the top. Here on the driver's side, we went in and removed the windshield wiper. That allowed us to lift up the cowl a little bit further. Then underneath, we went ahead and used a longer socket so we could get these front two, but the back one was a little bit harder to get to, especially too since the arm from the wiper blade motor goes straight through there and kind of blocks that bolt. But luckily for us, Toyota kind of thought of that for their mechanics. So what we did is we switched over to a stubby socket and got that one out, since the bolt itself, or the stud, didn't go as far through the nut. So I went ahead and I loosened the nut for the sway bar end link. That's a 17. If you have trouble, I hit with the impact, but if you have trouble, you can go ahead and put a 6mm Allen on the end with a 17mm box wrench. All right, so next you're gonna take a 14mm here to loosen this bolt that holds in place the brake lines. You'll wiggle free the bracket here that sits on the back side. And then next we're going to take our body clip removal tool, and we're going to take the speed sensor line off, and then we're just going to take a 10mm socket and pull out that bolt right there that holds the speed sensor into the back of the knuckle. Feels like it maybe should be a 22.
Oh, you think?
I couldn't find a 22, so I figured it'd just work.
All right.
Yep.
Let's hope this one doesn't strip it too. We need a new impact.
It went shooting out across the driveway.
This one didn't go shooting across the driveway.
God dang, would you look at that?
Yeah, I did it.
Good job.
You didn't do anything.
I know I didn't.
I didn't do anything.
Somebody's got to work the camera. Now that we have it off, we're going to use this screwdriver here just to pry off the cap. And then underneath we have a 19mm nut. Now that we have this safely secured in our spring compressor, we're going to go ahead and take this nut off. You can rent these from most part stores. We actually have this one here thanks to our good friends over at Gear Wrench.
Yeah, sketchy. Didn't like that.
All right, there we go.
I did it.
Good job, Ethan. Not too many people had faith in you, but I didn't. I mean, what? And here are our new springs. Here we have our rears. These ones here are our fronts. Here you can see the difference in the two springs side by side. Yeah.
A little bit bigger.
A little bit. All right, so depending on how far you took this apart, just remember that you have your bump stop. Up top, you're gonna have your washer. Then we're gonna set our spring over the top of that, making sure that the end sits here in that little pocket. If your boot here came out, make sure that your dust cover clips back in down here at the bottom. Then you'll notice this thing here, this spacer, sits at an angle. Then you're gonna go ahead and add your mount to it. It is keyed, so up top you're gonna see there's a flat end here, as well as right here. After you have that in place, you're gonna add your spacer there before adding your nut to the top of this bolt. It's gonna go ahead and send the strut back up into the area here in the wheel well and line it up. I will be up top to go ahead and put the nuts on top. One thing you should know about this that we didn't know at first and we were struggling with why one of the studs wasn't coming through, there's washers in between here in these plates. So if one of those shifts, you're gonna be pushing up against a washer and not being able to get it through. So just make sure you put your finger in there, feel around to see if your washer is blocking that top. When you go to put everything back together, it's just going to be the reverse of how you did it when you took it apart. You're gonna put the knuckle back in, reattach your brake line and your speed sensor. Ethan and I are halfway through with this job right now. This was a pain in the dick because the drive shaft popped out. A lot of people have told me when they've done springs, the drive shaft pops out. What was happening was this here wasn't lining up top. So we were thinking maybe we need to adjust that or something, but no, drive shaft popped out. Ethan is here reassembling the springs for the passenger side. We went ahead and loosened we completely took off the nut at the end of the axle and popped it free so that we had more mobility in it, so hopefully it wouldn't pull that drive shaft out and we wouldn't have any problems when we're getting in the passenger side like we did with the driver's side.
All right, here we are on the other side and the drive shaft is like completely out. I don't know if you guys can see that. You definitely can. If you can't, you're pretty blind, but.
So all we have to do is pop that out. It's a good thing we already loosened that bolt. And we'll just jam this thing back up on there.
So definitely if you're doing this, expect it to pop out because it's happened on both sides now.
Are you recording now?
I am recording now.
All right. So when you go to put in the bottom bolt, it'll go in all right. But when you try to get the top one in, it feels like something is stopping it and you can't get that angle. That's because the drive shaft is popped out. With the drive shaft in place, look, you should have this kind of movement out of your strut. And if you don't have that, just know that your drive shaft is out of place. And even if you grab onto it, it may seem like it's not loose, but that doesn't mean that it hasn't unclipped from the actual transmission. It may still be within the splines, but it's not actually clipped into its location, which will stop you from having this movement. So that's just something to keep your eye on. Yep. So the rear here should be considerably easier than the fronts were. All you're doing is removing this one 17-inch bolt here at the bottom. There's a nut and bolt, but they're both 17s. And then you drop that lower control arm and drop the spring out. The front was a major, major pain. So the fact that all you gotta do is drop this one bolt and that whole thing comes out of there is fantastic. The one thing that you do have to remember is you're gonna need to use your jack so you can lift that lower control arm up. Since it's not like a lowering spring, we are lifting this thing, it's gonna need a little bit of oomph behind it to get that up in place so that you can get that nut back in there. And you've got to be careful when you're doing it. It's easier if you have two people because you can have one person down there helping the other person line up the hole, because if you don't have that, then you're going to be fumbling around with it.
This one wasn't nearly as tight as the other side.
With this nut and bolt setup, you do have a nut on the inside. The bolt goes through from the back side, but it's also threaded. So the initial part here at the back of the car is going to be threaded. So you'll start to pull that through. It'll feel like it's loose, but then you're going to hit the thread. So then you're going to have to get your wrench again to help turn that out. 3 hours later. The longest part of this job here is pulling that one bolt out. After that, it's pretty smooth sailing.
Oh, there's a little thing right here. It stayed in on this side, but it sits just right on top of here. And it goes on the top. Let's see. We got Eibach read the right way. So let's just pop that back in there. Like so.
So with this, you got to make sure that, like Ethan said, the cap is up top, but you also need to make sure that the spring is turned the right way to nestle in the perch below. So what Ethan is going to do now is he's going to lift up the lower control arm with the jack, and I'm going to watch this to make sure that we're lined up. Perfect, son.
I did it.
Good job, boy. Now, if you run into a slight problem with trying to get everything lined up, then you can do like we're doing here, and then use a screwdriver against this to help get it in place. Bam!
I did it, guys.
Yeah! Like and subscribe. This here, if I'm not mistaken, needs to be tightened down to 54 foot-pounds.
Looks like
Pound feet?
54 to me.
Foot 50 pounds? Here's something crazy with the GR that I just now saw. This is a spacer on the front of this brake rotor. We just finished up raising the GR Corolla. I think the thing looks awesome. We'll do some B-roll for you guys right now.
Fly dope swaggy, that's how I roll. On another level, on another level, on another one above me. Stepping through the crowd, yeah, I'm feeling so supreme.
This to your B-roll.
But man, I'm kind of happy with how this turned out, but I will say it was a pain if you do not know about the drive shaft. So make sure that you check that and save yourself a little bit of trouble, because I think that added probably about an hour to our time while we were trying to figure that out. Otherwise, I would say we legitimately started this around 1 o'clock, I believe. It's 5:30 now, so it's 4.5 hours. It definitely would have taken closer to 3 had we known that. So keep that in mind. And until the next one, make sure to like and subscribe, hit those bell notifications, and we'll see you the next time. Peace!